Okay, all right, good. All right. So I'll call to order the October 13th, 2022 Revenue Estimating Conference. First item of business is to approve the agenda. So unless there is an objection from either of the members, which I hear none, we'll approve those. The next item of business is to approve the minutes from the March 2022 meeting. Excuse me. Unless there is an objection, and I hear none, so we will approve those unanimously as well. So following past protocol, I would recognize Holly Lyons for her, if she has any comments.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The fiscal year 2022 books closed 2 weeks ago, and revenue came in much higher than the March REC estimate. And again, we missed it big on the positive side, as did many states. The recovery from the short recession brought on by the pandemic was much more robust than predicted by economists or revenue forecasting committees. Compared to fiscal year 21, which provided a very strong rebound that was concentrated in the final 3 months of the fiscal year, general fund net revenue for fiscal year 22 increased $1 billion and 11.4% compared to the fiscal year 21 level, and exceeded the REC estimate by $627.3 million, or 7%. Iowa's large and unexpected revenue growth experience was similar to many states late last spring. This growth reflected significant increases in all 3 major tax categories and reflects job and wage growth, positive consumer confidence in the form of pent-up demand for goods and services, and a rapidly improving economy. The current fiscal year 23, is running, as of yesterday, Wednesday, $173 million, or 9.4% above the prior year. Despite lots of press suggesting an upcoming recession, there is currently no sign of such a thing in Iowa tax revenue, Iowa employment, or Iowa wage earnings. Turning to our estimate for fiscal year 2023 and 2024, since we met 7 months ago last March, the headlines continue to be filled with news that impacts the economy. There's so much economic noise out there, and as Director Paulson has said before, much of it is conflicting. On the national level, major indicators such as employment, personal income, consumption, and industrial production all grew in the first 8 months of the year, albeit slower than they did in 2021, suggesting that the economy is not in a recession, but merely in a period of slower growth as it transitions from the rapid recovery from the brief but harsh pandemic-induced recession. The U.S. economy added 263,000 jobs in September, which has slowed since last spring, but is significant in that the U.S. is not shedding jobs, a harbinger for a recession. Competition for workers remains high, with job openings well above pre-pandemic levels, but the number of openings is decreasing as the overall economy slows down. Wage growth remains strong, with hourly earnings climbing 5% from a year ago, but from the wage earner's perspective, it is failing to keep up with inflation. Iowa's employment is still less than pre-pandemic levels, but is growing and adding jobs at the average rate of 3,000 per month for the last year. Job listings remain plentiful, and the labor force participation rate indicates that additional job growth is likely in the coming year. The Iowa unemployment rate is 2.6%, near its all-time lowest rate. As I've often noted, additional jobs mean additional wage income, and indications are that along with growth in jobs, there is currently much better than normal growth in average wages. In addition to the expected growth in wage income, farm income from the 2022 corn and soybean crop looks to be approximately $2 billion higher than last year's very good crop. Of course, input costs such as seed and fertilizer have increased as well, but all indications are that it should be a good year for farmers. The additional jobs, increased wages, and a good crop income point to a better than average growth in Iowa incomes, and that leads to growth in tax revenue. There are still an increasing number of headwinds facing the U.S. and world economies. Inflation is a concern, and whether or not the Federal Reserve can pull off a, quote, soft landing by increasing interest rates to curb the high inflation rate. A soft landing is a process of an economy shifting from growth to slow growth to potentially flat as it approaches but avoids a recession. And there is the Russian-Ukraine war, which could take some ugly turns and further impact energy and food supply. An additional concern is the reaction of the markets as investors assess the state of jobs and inflation. Then there is the global economy in general. Not all countries have recovered from the pandemic, and some, like Great Britain, have just recently fallen into a recession. With a worsening economic outlook around the world, the risk of a recession increases. Turning to our estimate, it needs to be noted that there are major tax reductions starting in January that will slow the accumulation of general fund revenue. For individual income tax, the top rate is lowered from 8.53% to 6%. And in addition, retirement income will no longer be taxed by the state. On the corporate income tax side, the top rate is lowered from 9.8% to 8.4%. These changes and others are included in the LSA estimate, with a net total of $575 million removed for fiscal year 23 and an additional $450 million removed for fiscal year 24. The result is an LSA projection of a modest net revenue decrease for fiscal year 23 and an FY24 estimate that is essentially flat.
Thank you. Now to Member David Underwood, if you have any remarks you'd like to share.
Yes, I do have a couple of comments. As Holly indicated, we are experiencing quite a low unemployment rate. I think nationally, we just hit a 5-year low, which is quite exciting, unless you're trying to hire somebody. And that's one of the issues I think we've got. We're not going to get much individual taxpayer growth in wages just by adding more workers. Everybody is just kind of sitting back and saying, I can't find them anymore. They're just, I mean, it's really discouraging to see it, but they're just about giving up because they can't find the workers that are willing to show up for work every day. So I think there's a slowness that we're going to see to that wage growth. The other thing with it is that the wage increases are just about the levels where we're not going to see those wage growths going forward. I mean, I've talked to a number of people who say, I just can't pay anymore. The profits aren't there to support that. And then I can't find new workers. So they're limiting their business growth in Iowa just because of those two factors alone, let alone the supply chain issues that continue to really cause significant problems. I think the only thing that I've seen done recently is a bunch of roofing in our area because somebody was smart enough to go out and fill a warehouse with shingles. I don't know where everybody else is getting shingles, but that individual happened to buy about a 3-year supply of shingles before it got to be a crisis situation. So he says, what color would you like? And I'll put them on for you. His crews are too efficient, though. They don't work very long on a house. But those are the kinds of things that I see that we recovered quite rapidly in Iowa from the COVID issues. But nobody has figured out how to continue that growth level. That's what worries me about the growth levels that we're going to see in employment and profitability in Iowa. And then trying to figure out what the Fed's doing. Of course, they've gone after inflation. They've set their goal as to what level. They just continue to increase interest rates, but their monetary policies have really yet to take hold. I mean, they should have just gone out and increased interest rates 4% and, made the pain happen rather than this little bit here and a little bit there, because if this is supposed to work it's, I don't know how it's going to be soft because it hasn't done anything yet, let alone start to reverse that. And then when you look at the international issues and the pain that's going on in other countries, it won't be long before that really starts to hurt us as well. And we've still got the Ukraine war going on that hasn't really let up at all. There was some good news there that they were finally getting some grain shipped out, and how much impact that's going to have on our grain markets here. But if they don't get the crops in and can get them somewhere, they're not going to be around for next year's crops. And crop income, we talked about that. Holly has talked about 2022 looking pretty good. Everything I've been reading, though, is the farmers have already moved off of 2022. I mean, they're worried now about 2023. Their input costs are just going through the roof, from fuel to fertilizer and seed, you name it. The issues are there. The issues of the supply chain for equipment and parts for the equipment to get the crops out, get the crops in, continues to be a real issue. Just heard an implement dealer on the radio today on the way down lamenting the issues that he has of providing the equipment and keeping the farmers that are his customers running in the field. Is very, very difficult. But it's certainly a lot of grain coming out quickly. But they better not break down because that's going to put a stop to it rather quickly for a number of farmers. So I wish I had the optimism that you showed. It's good in Iowa, but how long is it going to be good? And I know our leading indicators in Iowa don't really show the recession imminent in Iowa, but there's a difference between the recession and just a slowness or a halt to our growth. And that's what's scary to me is I think we'll weather it pretty well in Iowa, but I don't know if we're going to have the rapid growth that we've been seeing. And that's where I'm concerned going forward. Of course, we do get to meet in December, fortunately. That's my comments, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. So a couple of quick thoughts on my own. First of all, again, I want to thank the teams at the Department of Management, Department of Revenue, and also the Legislative Services Agency for helping us do the back end work as we lead up to this meeting. In particular, a thank you to LSA for squaring away so that I could come in remotely today instead of having to postpone due to my illness. All these are always difficult to predict, but this one in particular seems to have some rather strong conflicting indicators, and not only that, they're in areas that are controlling. So that just makes it a little bit more challenging. Iowa U.S. economies have slowed in real terms since March as some of the recession risks pick up. The Federal Reserve has made it clear that they'll do whatever they need to do to return inflation back to its 2% target. Some of the indicators that I looked at is, again, Iowa real GDP did decline a little bit in the second quarter. The leading indicators, as David made reference to, are flat, and some of the U.S. leading indicators in a contractionary territory. Inflation is remaining stubbornly high, even as gas prices have come down. Food inflation remains high. Rent, obviously a very sticky component of inflation, has moved up. Employment costs have gone up as we've seen wage growth, which in and of itself is not bad, but these items together give some pause. That having been said, I do continue to maintain, I am optimistic because the labor market is holding up and clearly consumers are still spending. Job growth is both solid state and nationwide. We're seeing it inch up as often the unemployment rate does. It moves in at the margin in small increments rather than huge leaps. And we are continuing to see some growth there. The unemployment rate in Iowa is near pre-pandemic low. As previously mentioned, farm income continues to be good, and the USDA is projecting that receipts will outpace expenses, at least here for, as I understand their prediction, at least for some period of time. And then as we look to our actual receipts in the state of Iowa, net receipts are up year to date, 6.1%. Sales and use receipts are up 4.2%. Again, some of this would be driven by the inflation, but also consumer spending just in general is continuing to be strong. And withholding is up as well, and a reflection of some of the wage growth. So anyway, factor all these things together. At this time, the recommendation from the executive branch to the conference is a conservative, definitely not pessimistic. I'm not pessimistic about what's coming at all, but it is somewhat conservative. The continued growth that we are seeing, I think, is a credit to the state's policies, and is credit to the continued investment and trust of Iowans in the state's economy. I do have a modest pause about what the second half of the fiscal year will bring, and this clearly is coloring a little bit more cautious attitude. So those would be my thoughts as we delve into the numbers now. So as is typically the fashion, the predictions or estimates by Department of Management and the and Legislative Services Agency have been combined onto a single spreadsheet there for everyone's review. And I would look to David to see if he has any sort of recommendation or motion. And this would be specifically, the next item would be to review the fiscal year 2023 general fund estimates, accruals, refunds, school infrastructure transfer, lottery, and other transfers. So with that, turn to you, David.
Okay, I do have a recommendation. After reviewing your computations, and again, thanks to the staff for providing the detail for me so that I could try to reconcile the numbers and the forecasts. So I guess I chose in this case to use the governor appointee's numbers to start with for the fiscal year 23 general fund, currently sitting at 9,404.1 at a minus 4.1%. And my proposal would be to increase the personal income tax by 40 million, increase the sales and use tax by 40 million, and decrease the refund by 50 million, which is a net increase, if I did this right, by about $130 million.
How do you want to change the refund again?
Decreased the refund by 50 million.
50. So a plus 130.
Plus 130 net. So 1,160 to 1,110,000,000.
Okay, so for a net refunds plus transfers, if I did my math right, 9,534,000,000.
Correct.
0.1. Is that what? Is that comport with you, Joel and Jeff. It would
What's
appear
our
so.
percentage? Our percentage on that is,
Negative 2.7.
All right. Holly, thoughts? Or is that, I'm sorry, David, is that a motion then?
yes, it is.
Okay,
I think I'm okay with that. I was gonna, if I were to make the motion, I was gonna add 150 million to DOMs, but 130, I'm not gonna squabble over $20 million in a $9 billion budget, so,
Okay.
accept that.
I am comfortable as well. So with that, that's a second, I presume?
Yes, that's a second.
So we have a motion, we have a second, so that the FY '23 net receipts plus transfers 9,534.1 billion. All those in favor say aye.
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 That is 3 ayes, so that is adopted unanimously. The next item is review fiscal year 2024 general fund estimates, accruals, refunds, school infrastructure transfer, and lottery and other transfers. And again, I would turn to you, David.
Okay, in this case, my recommendation is going with the governor point again for consistency here. Increasing personal income tax by 60 million and decreasing the refunds by 30 million, which changes the net receipts plus transfers from 9,484.3 to 9,574.3. And percentage change would
Yep.
be,
Fiscal year 24 would be a positive 0.4%.
Okay. Joel and Jay, you guys both, or I'm sorry, Joel and Jeff, you guys both have the math on that? Assuming that's a yes, since you already responded. I just want to confirm. Yep, okay. And I assume that's a motion, David?
yes, sir.
All right. Holly?
My thoughts on that is I would like to go just a little bit higher, but again, I mean, I was thinking we would just do the same, add the same amount to the next year, just because it is, this isn't our estimate that the administration is going to have to base the budget on. That's going to come in December. I was thinking we'd have a little more time to look at that and we could adjust it down in December if we needed to. So I was thinking more of a figure of about 130 million total, but again, $40 million in a $9 billion budget. I'm probably not going to quabble, but would you accept 20 million more, 40 million more?
I'm not going to quibble with you over 20 million.
Okay.
So if,
So where would you suggest that?
Yeah, I mean, we adjusted sales tax in the,
yeah,
23.
you could add 20 million to the sales tax.
and we were a little higher on sales in the second year than the governor appointee. So we could add it there or split it between income and sales.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Is that right? Sales all right?
Yeah.
Okay. 20 million more.
Okay.
So that's a 95, 94.3.
That's what I
Which
have.
takes us to a 0.5, 0.5, 6, 0.6. Wow.
Okay.
And hopefully in 2 months, we'll have, I always say this, we'll have more information. And then in December, I say we really don't have much more information, but maybe we'll have a better idea of what the feds are doing.
Okay. Recognizing that, I guess technically that's amendment, let's just call it a new motion. So the motion is from Member Lyons, and David, would you like to second it?
Yeah. My motion, you second? Okay.
Yep. Is that a yes, David?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry, I can't see you very well, so. Okay, then any discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
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 And aye, so that passes unanimously. Next item is the fiscal years 2023, 2024 gambling revenues transferred to other funds and interest earned on reserve funds transferred to the Rebuild Iowa Infrastructure Fund.
Well, since all the numbers are the same from the LSA and the governor's appointee, I'll move them as shown here.
All right, excellent. And a second.
Second.
All right. All those, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye, so that passes unanimously as well. Is there any other business?
I guess I do have an announcement. This is my last REC meeting as I'm retiring in early January. And I just want to express my appreciation of, it's been an honor to serve on this committee for 14 years, I think. I'm looking forward to retirement, but I'm also scared to death. I have enjoyed working with both of you, and good luck to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your service. Anything else? All right, then we are adjourned.